Paris, 1800. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine Paris in 1800. The city smells like revolution, not metaphorically. The streets are narrow, medieval, tangled like veins in an old hand. Open sewers run down the center of cobblestone alleys. Buildings lean into each other like tired trunks. The Seine is filthy. Cholera will come more than once, and when it does, it will move through these streets like a whisper. Napoleon has just seized power. France is exhausted, a monarchy beheaded, a revolution that ate its own children, a reign of terror that set 17,000 people to the guillotine, and now a general who crowned himself emperor. The country doesn't know what it is yet, but something is stirring. Not in the palaces, not in the government halls, in the countryside, in the iron, in the coal. The countryside catches fire. Before Paris transforms, the French countryside does. Out in the Loire Valley in Normandy, in the textile towns of Lille and Mulhouse in Alsace, the machines arrive. France industrializes differently than England. Across the Channel, Britain's revolution was coal-black and brutal, driven by massive factories and child-sized hands. France's path is slower, stranger, more uneven. The French countryside had a deep artisan tradition. Skilled weavers, glassblowers, silk workers in Lyon who had been perfecting their craft for centuries. The machine didn't immediately crush them. It crept in alongside them. Silk production in Lyon, cotton mills in Rouen, iron forges in Le Creusot, where the Snyder family would build an industrial empire that rivaled anything in Birmingham. The French railway system, begun seriously in the 1840s under King Louis-Philippe, starts stitching countryside to the capital, and with every rail line completed, another wave of rural workers boards a train to Paris. Between 1800 and 1850, Paris nearly doubles in population, from roughly 550,000 to over 1 million people. They came from Brittany, from the Auvergne, from the south, with almost nothing. They crowded into the old medieval quarters. They found work, barely. They found disease, easily. And somewhere in this swelling, groaning city, a new kind of person began to appear. Not noble, not starving, something in between. Haussmann cuts Paris open. In 1853, Emperor Napoleon III gives one man the keys to the city. His name is Georges Eugène Haussmann, and his job is simple: destroy old Paris, build a new one. What Haussmann does over the next 17 years is one of the most traumatic urban transformations in human history. He doesn't renovate, he demolishes. Entire neighborhoods gone. Medieval streets that stood for 500 years, razed in months. In their place, the Paris we know today. Wide, grand boulevards radiating out like the spokes of a wheel. Uniform cream-colored limestone buildings with iron balconies, all the same height, all obeying strict architectural codes. Tree-lined avenues, public parks, the Bois de Napoleon, the Butte Chameau, built for a city that had almost no green space. But Haussmann's project isn't just about beauty, it's strategic. Those wide boulevards, they're designed so cavalry can charge down them and cannons can fire in straight lines. Paris had seen 3 major uprisings in 60 years, 1789, 1830, 1848, and the narrow medieval streets were perfect for barricades. Napoleon III was building grandeur on top of military calculation. And beneath all of it, literally, Haussmann builds a sewer system. 600 kilometers of underground tunnels, fresh water piped in from the countryside, gas lighting on every boulevard. Paris goes from a cholera trap to the most modern city in Europe in barely 2 decades. But there is a cost. The working poor who lived in those demolished neighborhoods, well, they're pushed to the edges, to Belleville, to Ménilmontant, to the slopes of Montmartre. The new Paris is gorgeous, but it isn't for them. The Palais Garnier and the politics of spectacle. Napoleon III understands something essential. Legitimacy isn't just about power, it's about performance. In 1861, he commissions a new opera house. It will take 14 years to build, survive a war and a revolution, and become the most opulent theater in the world. The Palais Garnier, designed by Charles Garnier, a young and relatively unknown architect selected through an open competition in 1861, is not really about opera. It's a cathedral to the new social order. The grand staircase alone is a stage, literally designed so that the audience could watch each other arriving. The wealthy bourgeoisie climbing those marble steps weren't just attending the performance, they were the performance. Mirrors, gilt, velvet, chandeliers, every surface says the same thing. You have arrived. You belong here now. This is where the ballet lives, and inside this temple of spectacle, the ballet is undergoing its own revolution. The dancers in the light. By the 1860s and the 1870s, the Paris Opera Ballet is one of the most prestigious institutions in France, and one of the most quietly brutal. The dancers, the petits rats as they're called, are almost entirely working-class girls, some as young as 7 or 8. Their families send them to the ballet because it's one of the only paths to a steady income. The training is grueling, the pay is thin. And behind the curtain, there is an open secret that everyone knows and no one discusses. Wealthy male subscribers, abonnés, pay for backstage access. They move through the rehearsal spaces, the wings, the foyer de la danse, like they own it. Because, in a sense, they do. Now, enter a man with bad eyesight and an obsession. Edgar Degas begins painting the ballet around 1870, and he will make it his life's subject for the next 30 years. He produces over 1,500 works, paintings, pastels, drawings, sculptures, devoted to dancers. But look closer. Degas doesn't paint performances. He paints rehearsals. He paints exhaustion, a dancer stretching her aching foot, another slumped on a bench, another scratching her back. He paints the abommies, dark, looming figures in top hats standing at the edges of the frame, watching. He paints the machinery behind the beauty. Degas is painting the Industrial Revolution, not smokestacks and railways, but what industrial wealth does to people, who it elevates, who it consumes, who watches, who dances. The Impressionists paint a new world. Degas isn't alone. In the 1860s and 1870s, a loose circle of painters begins to do something the world has never seen. They leave the studio. They paint now. They paint the world the Industrial Revolution built, and they do it in broad daylight. Claude Monet paints the Gare Saint-Lazare in 1877, a train station, steam billowing under an iron and glass roof. A century earlier, no serious painter would have considered a train station a worthy subject. But Monet sees it for what it is, the heartbeat of a new Paris. The railways don't just move people, they move time itself. They create suburbs, they create weekends. They create the idea that a Parisian banker can be on the banks of the Seine at Argenteuil by Saturday afternoon with a picnic basket and a rented boat. Pierre-Auguste Renoir paints those afternoons. Bas du Marne du Nugget, 1876, is a sun-dappled outdoor dance in Montmartre. Look at the people. They're not aristocrats. They're shopkeepers, students, seamstresses. This is the middle class at leisure, and the fact that this painting exists at all is revolutionary. 100 years earlier, these people would not have had the time, the money, or the social permission to spend a Sunday afternoon dancing in a garden. Even their technique is industrial. The peat tubes they squeeze onto their palettes, invented in 1841 by an American portrait painter named John Goffrand, are a product of industrial manufacturing. Before the collapsible metal tube, paint had to be mixed fresh or stored in a pig bladder. You couldn't just throw a kit over your shoulder and walk to the river. The Impressionists didn't just paint the modern world. The modern world gave them the tools to do it. The political earthquake beneath it all. None of this happens in a vacuum. France between 1800 and 1900 is one of the most politically volatile places on Earth. A timeline. Napoleon's empire falls in 1815. The Bourbon monarchy is restored. It falls in the July Revolution of 1830. Louis-Philippe, the citizen king, takes over. He falls in the Revolution of 1848. The Second Republic is declared. It lasts 3 years. Louis Napoleon stages a coup and declares the Second Empire. He rules for 18 years, builds Haussmann's Paris, commissions the Garnier, and then, in 1870, makes the catastrophic decision to go to war with Prussia. France loses badly. Napoleon III is captured at the Battle of Sedan. September 1870. Paris is besieged for 4 months. Parisians eat horses, then rats, then be animals in the zoo. When the armistice comes, the humiliation is total. Paris erupts. The Paris Commune of 1871, a radical working-class government, seizes the city for 72 days. It ends in blood. The French army retakes Paris in La Semaine Sanglante, the Bloody Week, killing between 10,000 and 20,000 communards. More French citizens died in 1 week than during the entire Reign of Terror. The Third Republic rises from the ashes. And here's the remarkable part. The art doesn't stop. The first Impressionist exhibition happens in 1874, 3 years after the Commune. Paris rebuilds, again. The Palais Garnier finally opens up in 1875, as if nothing had happened. The boulevards fill with cafes. Toulouse-Lautrec starts painting the cabarets of Montmartre. The Moulin Rouge opens in 1889. The same year, the Eiffel Tower goes up for the World's Fair. Paris keeps choosing spectacle. Paris keeps choosing beauty. Not because the pain isn't real, but because the city has learned that culture is its own kind of survival. What the paintings remember. Here is what the Industrial Revolution did to Paris. It broke the city open, rebuilt it in limestone and iron, filled it with strangers who became neighbors, created fortunes and misery in equal measure, and produced, almost as a byproduct, some of the most extraordinary art in human history. The next time you see a Degas ballerina, don't just see the tulle. See the girl from Belleville who wakes up at dawn to train on a body that aches. See the man in the top hat at the edge of the painting. See the gas lamps that make the whole scene glow. The same gas that lights the boulevards. The same gas that comes from the same coal that comes from the same mines that built this new world. The beauty and the machinery were never separate. They never are.